I still have the voicemail. I play it sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, when I need to remind myself that it actually happened, that I'm not crazy. Here's what it said. Hi, Sarah. This is Margaret from Coastal Retreats Property Management. I'm calling about your stay at the Hawthorne property. I see you've already checked in, which is unusual. We don't have a booking for that address tonight. In fact, we don't manage a property at that address anymore. Please call me back immediately. Do not stay in that house. I didn't get that voicemail until the next morning. By then, it was too late. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm 31 years old. I'm a travel nurse, which means I go where the hospitals need me. 3 months here, 6 months there. Living out of suitcases, sleeping in furnished apartments and Airbnbs, never really settling anywhere. It sounds glamorous when you describe it at parties. Oh, you get to see the whole country. That must be so exciting. The reality is lonelier than you'd think. You're always the new person. Always learning new systems, new faces, new coffee machines, new parking lots. By the time you start to feel comfortable somewhere, it's time to leave. You never really belong anywhere. You're always passing through. In October, I got a 13-week assignment in Portland, Oregon. Good money, decent hospital, and I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest before. Figured I'd finally see what all the hype was about. The trees, the coffee, the rain that everyone complained about but secretly loved. I spent 2 weeks looking for housing. Portland's rental market is brutal for short-term stays, too short for a regular lease, too long for most vacation rentals. Landlords want year-long commitments. Airbnb hosts want weekend tourists who will pay premium rates, not someone who'll actually live there and use the washing machine. I must have applied to 30 places before I found one that would take a 3-month booking. The listing was called Charming Hawthorne Bungalow, private and peaceful. 4.9 stars, 87 reviews. Photos showed a cute little craftsman-style house with a wraparound porch, hardwood floors, a clawfoot tub, big windows letting in lots of natural light, a cozy reading nook by the fireplace. The kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine about Higa living. The price was almost too good. $1,200 a month, utilities included, in Portland, for a whole house. I should have known something was wrong right there. In a city where studio apartments go for $1,500, a whole house for $1,200 doesn't make sense. The math doesn't add up. But I was desperate and tired, and the photos were so pretty. I sent a message to the host, asking if it was still available. The response came within minutes, eager, almost too eager. Hi, Sarah. Yes, still available. Would love to have you. Travel nurses are my favorite guests. You're always so respectful and low maintenance. Let me know if you have any questions about the neighborhood or the house. I asked about parking. He gave detailed instructions. Street parking was free, but there was also a spot in the back accessible through the alley. I asked about the neighborhood safety. He sent a 2-paragraph essay about how Hawthorne was one of Portland's best areas, with crime statistics and links to neighborhood watch groups and everything. I asked if there were any quirks about the house I should know, any weird neighbors, any construction noise, anything that might affect my sleep schedule as a night shift worker. His response to that one took a little longer. The house is wonderfully quiet. You'll sleep like a baby. The neighbors are lovely, mostly older couples, very respectful of quiet hours. The only quirk is that it's an old Craftsman, built in 1924, so you'll hear the occasional creak and settle, but nothing that should disturb you. I've had guests tell me it's the best sleep they've had in years. Something about that phrase stuck with me. The best sleep they've had in years. It felt like a promise, or maybe a threat. The host's name was David. His profile picture showed a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, salt and pepper beard, flannel shirt, standing in front of some trees holding a hiking pole. He looked like someone's dad. Someone's nice, normal, Pacific Northwest outdoorsy dad. His bio said he was a former software engineer who'd gotten into property management after burning out on the tech industry. I love helping travelers feel at home, it said. Portland is a special place, and I want every guest to experience the best of it. Wholesome, trustworthy, normal. His messages were warm and welcoming throughout the booking process. So excited to host you, Sarah. The Hawthorne neighborhood is wonderful. Great coffee shops, easy bus access to the hospital district. Let me know if you have any questions. He sent detailed check-in instructions, door code, Wi-Fi password, recommendations for local restaurants, a PDF guide to the neighborhood with his personal picks for brunch spots and hiking trails, and the best place to get vegan donuts. Everything you'd want from a good host. I arrived on a Sunday evening in early October. The house was on a quiet residential street, just like the photos showed. Mature trees lining the sidewalk, their leaves starting to turn gold and orange. Porch lights glowing warm against the gray drizzle. The kind of neighborhood where people wave to each other and leave packages on porches without worrying about theft. I punched in the door code. It worked. Inside, the house was exactly as advertised. Clean, cozy, smelled faintly of lavender and wood polish, fresh flowers on the kitchen table. A nice touch, I thought. Little chocolates on the pillow in the bedroom. A handwritten welcome note on the counter. Welcome home, Sarah. Make yourself comfortable. You deserve it. David. I texted David to let him know I'd arrived safely. Welcome. Hope you love it. I'm always available if you need anything. Just holler. I unpacked my bags, made myself some tea, settled into the couch with my laptop to review my orientation materials for the hospital. Normal. Everything was normal. For the first 3 days, looking back, I can see the warning signs I missed. The way the house was too clean. Not just tidy, sterile, like someone had scrubbed every surface with bleach before I arrived. The grout between the bathroom tiles was pristine. The inside of the microwave was spotless. Even the baseboards looked like they had been wiped down. The way the welcome flowers on the kitchen table were slightly wilted, like they'd been placed there days ago, like someone had been expecting me before I even booked. The way certain drawers were completely empty while others were overstocked. The kitchen had 3 full sets of dishes but no can opener. The bathroom had a dozen towels but no bath mat. Like someone had removed things they didn't want me to find and filled the spaces with props. But I didn't notice any of that. Not then. I was tired from the drive, relieved to finally be somewhere I could call home for a few months, grateful that the place looked as nice as the photos. Sometimes that's all it takes to miss the signs. Sometimes you're so ready for something to be normal that you ignore everything telling you it's not. I noticed the cameras on day 4. Not hidden cameras, at least not the ones I found first. Regular security cameras, the kind hosts sometimes install for safety. One pointed at the front door, one covering the driveway, reasonable for a rental property. But there was also one in the living room, mounted in the corner near the ceiling, partially hidden by a fake plant. The little red light was off, so I almost missed it. I wouldn't have noticed it all if I hadn't dropped a pen and bent down to pick it up. From that angle, crouching near the coffee table, I could see the lens reflecting the lamplight. A camera, pointed at the couch, where I'd been sleeping some nights when I was too tired to make it to the bedroom, where I'd been watching TV in my pajamas, where I'd been changing into my scrubs before work, because the bedroom felt too far away at 6 a.m. My stomach lurched. I searched the rest of the house with new paranoia, checked every corner, every shelf, every smoke detector. Found another one in the kitchen, hidden behind a decorative plate on a shelf. Pointed at the sink and the counter where I prepared food. Another in the hallway, tucked into a smoke detector that wasn't actually a smoke detector. The kind you can buy online that looks exactly like the real thing. I checked the listing again. Nowhere did it mention interior cameras. Airbnb's policy requires hosts to disclose all recording devices, and this one was clearly undisclosed. I messaged David, "Hey, quick question. I noticed there's a camera in the living room, and possibly in the kitchen and hallway. Just wanted to confirm they're not recording? The listing didn't mention interior surveillance." His response came quickly. Too quickly. "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Those are old cameras from the previous security system. The house used to be managed by a different company, and they installed them for liability reasons. They're completely disconnected now. Been meaning to take them down for ages. Didn't mean to alarm you. I should have mentioned them in the listing. My bad." Reasonable explanation. I wanted to believe him. I shouldn't have. Day 6, I couldn't sleep. The house made noises at night. All old houses do, settling, creaking, the 100 small sounds of aged wood adjusting to temperature changes. I knew that. I'd lived in plenty of old houses during my travel assignments, but these noises were different. They were rhythmic. Every night around 2 a.m., I'd hear it. A soft, regular sound coming from somewhere in the house. Not creaking, not settling, not the random pops and groans of old timber. Footsteps, slow, careful, deliberate. Moving through the hallway outside my bedroom. The first time I heard them, I convinced myself it was the neighbors. Sound traveling through old walls. Maybe someone in the house next door getting up to use the bathroom. The second time, I got up and checked. The hallway was empty. The house was silent. Just my own reflection in the dark window, looking scared and pale. The third time, I lay in bed with my phone in my hand, flashlight app ready, listening as the footsteps approached my door. They stopped right outside. I could hear breathing, slow, steady, patient, like someone standing there deciding whether to come in, like someone savoring the moment. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at the thin strip of darkness under the door, waiting for something to block the light from the hallway nightlight. After what felt like an hour, the footsteps retreated, back down the hallway, down the stairs, and then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I searched the house the next morning. Every closet, every cabinet, behind every piece of furniture, the basement, the attic access panel in the hallway ceiling, nothing. No one. No sign that anyone had been there. But I did find something else. In the basement, behind the water heater, there was a door. Not a regular door, more like a hatch. About 3 feet tall, painted the same color as the concrete wall, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. The kind of thing you'd walk past 100 times without noticing. It was locked, heavy-duty padlock, the kind you can't pick without tools. I messaged David. Found a small door in the basement behind the water heater. What is it? Also having trouble sleeping. The house makes a lot of noise at night. Is that normal? His response took longer this time, almost an hour. That door leads to an old crawl space. We keep it locked for safety. Nothing interesting in there, just pipes and insulation and probably some spiders, LOL. As for the noise, these old craftsman houses are chatty. The wood expands and contracts with temperature changes. Try a white noise machine. I find it helps. Happy to send one over if you'd like. He offered to send a white noise machine. He didn't offer to explain the footsteps. Night 7, I set up my phone to record audio overnight, just to prove to myself that I was imagining things, that the footsteps weren't real, that I was tired and stressed and letting the unfamiliar house get to me. I positioned my phone on the nightstand, hit record, and went to sleep. In the morning, I played it back. For the first few hours, nothing. Just the ambient noise of an old house at night, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the occasional car passing on the wet street outside, rain against the windows. Then, at 2:14 a.m., the footsteps started, clear as day on the recording. Soft but unmistakable. Coming down the hallway, stopping outside my door. I heard my own breathing on the recording. Slow, regular, asleep. And then, this is the part that still makes me sick to remember. Another breath, not mine, deeper, slower, right next to the phone. Someone was standing next to my bed, close enough to touch me, close enough that their breathing was picked up by my phone on the nightstand. I could hear small sounds on the recording, fabric shifting, the barely audible creak of weight transferring from foot to foot. Whoever it was, they were settling in, getting comfortable. They stayed there for 43 minutes, I counted, on the recording. 43 minutes of them standing next to my bed while I slept, while I had no idea, while I was completely vulnerable and alone. At 2:57 a.m., the footsteps retreated. Down the hall, down the stairs, the basement door opening and closing. The crawl space, he'd been inside the whole time. I called the property management company, not David. The actual company listed on the rental agreement, Coastal Retreats Property Management. The phone rang 5 times before someone answered. Coastal Retreats, this is Margaret. How can I help you? I explained the situation. The cameras, the noises, the recording, the crawl space door. There was a long pause. I'm sorry. What address did you say? I gave her the address. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear typing in the background, a sharp intake of breath. Ma'am, can you hold for just a moment? Hold music. Tinny, generic, the kind that plays when someone is frantically looking something up or getting a supervisor. 3 minutes later, she came back on the line. Her voice had changed, tighter, more careful. The professional warmth was gone. Ma'am, I need you to listen very carefully. We do not manage a property at that address. We haven't managed that property in over 2 years. That's not possible. I booked through your platform. I've been communicating with your host, David. We don't have a host named David. We've never had a host named David. My blood went cold. The property at that address was removed from our listings in April of 2024. There was an incident. The owner passed away under unusual circumstances. The house has been tied up in probate ever since. No one should be renting it. No one should be living there. But I'm here. I've been staying here for a week. Someone gave me the door code. Someone's been messaging me. Ma'am, her voice was shaking now, I need you to leave that house immediately. Don't pack your bags, don't collect your things. Just get out and call the police. Do you understand me? Get out right now. I understood. I was grabbing my keys when I heard it. The basement door. The one that led to the crawl space. The one that had always been locked. It was open, and I could hear footsteps coming up the stairs. Slow, deliberate, not trying to hide anymore. I ran. Out the front door, down the porch steps, across the wet grass to my car. I didn't even close the front door behind me. Didn't look back. Just ran. I drove to the nearest police station and told them everything. The police searched the house that night. I sat in the back of a patrol car, wrapped in a shock blanket someone had given me, watching officers go in and out of that cute craftsman bungalow that was supposed to be my home for 3 months. They found the cameras first. Not just the ones I'd noticed, dozens more. Hidden in smoke detectors, air vents, behind mirrors, inside electrical outlets, in the ceiling fan, in the shower head, covering every room, every angle, every moment of privacy I thought I had. Every moment I'd spent in that house had been recorded. The cameras were connected to a server in the basement, in the crawl space, behind that locked door. They found a small room back there, insulated, soundproofed, equipped with a cot, a mini fridge, a chemical toilet, monitors covering an entire wall, showing feeds from every camera in the house. He'd been living in there, watching me, for 7 days. They found other things too. Personal items from previous guests, driver's licenses, jewelry, underwear, photos printed out and pinned to a corkboard. 7 women, all travel nurses, all staying alone. Most of them had left after a week or two, scared off by the noises. But 3 of them had never checked out. They never found David, or whoever was using that name. The listing had been fake. The profile had been fake. The payments had gone to an untraceable account. The original owner of the house, Patricia Morrison, 74 years old, retired schoolteacher, had died in 2024. Natural causes, according to the initial report. But the police reopened that investigation after what they found in the crawl space. She'd been his first. I finished my nursing assignment in Portland, stayed in a hotel for the remaining 11 weeks. Cost me almost 3 times what the rental would have been, but I couldn't bring myself to book another Airbnb, couldn't trust another stranger's house, couldn't look at a cute craftsman bungalow without wondering what was hidden in the basement. My coworkers at the hospital noticed the change, the dark circles under my eyes, the way I jumped at small sounds, the way I checked every room before I settled in anywhere. Bad rental experience, I told them, left it at that. Some things you can't explain to people who haven't lived them. I still check every rental now, every hotel room. I bring a flashlight and a signal detector. I check behind mirrors and inside smoke detectors. I check everywhere. Because I know what can be hiding in the walls. I know what can be waiting in the dark, and I know he's still out there. Still creating fake listings. Still watching. Still waiting for his next guest. I still have nightmares about that sound. The breathing, right next to my bed. 43 minutes of someone standing there watching me sleep, and I never knew. If you ever book a rental property, do your research. Call the management company directly. Verify the listing exists. Check the property address against public records, and trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Get out, because sometimes the host is watching, and sometimes watching isn't enough for him. I have photos, recordings, proof. None of it matters because no one believes me. My name is Diana Reyes. I'm 42 years old. I'm a forensic accountant, which means I spend my days finding patterns in numbers that other people miss. Hidden transactions, unexplained transfers, the fingerprints of fraud buried deep in spreadsheets that would put most people to sleep. I'm good at my job because I notice things. I notice when something doesn't add up. I notice when the story doesn't match the evidence. I notice discrepancies that other people dismiss as coincidence or clerical error. And I noticed, from the very first night in that cabin in Bend, Oregon, that something was wrong. I'd booked the place for 2 weeks. Remote work assignment, reviewing financial records for a client based in Portland. Complex case, lots of documents, the kind of work that requires focus and quiet. I didn't need to be in the office. I just needed Wi-Fi, a desk, and some peace and quiet away from my apartment in Seattle and all the distractions that came with it. The listing was called Mountain Retreat, Ben's Best Kept Secret. 4.8 stars, 64 reviews. Cozy A-frame cabin on 5 acres surrounded by ponderosa pines. Close enough to town for supplies, far enough for solitude. The photos showed exactly what I was looking for. Exposed beam ceilings, stone fireplace, views of the Cascades through floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of place where you could actually think. The host was a property management company, Cascade Properties LLC. No individual name, just a corporate entity with professional-looking responses to every review. Thank you for staying with us. We're so glad you enjoyed your time at the Mountain Retreat. We hope to see you again soon. Impersonal. Efficient. Exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to make friends with my host. I wanted to do my job and enjoy some mountain air. I arrived on a Saturday afternoon in early December. The roads had been clear, unusual for that time of year, and the drive from Seattle was easy. 4 hours of increasingly beautiful scenery through the Columbia River Gorge and then south through the high desert until the ponderosa pines started appearing. The cabin was at the end of a long private road, the last quarter-mile unpaved and winding through the forest. By the time I reached the driveway, I felt completely isolated, which was exactly what I'd wanted. It was more beautiful in person than in the photos. The A-frame rose from the forest like something out of a fairy tale. Dramatic peaked roof, weathered cedar siding, huge triangular window facing the mountains. Snow dusted the roof and the surrounding trees. Smoke curled from the stone chimney. Someone had started a fire before my arrival, the kind of thoughtful touch that good property managers provide. I punched in the door code, stepped inside, breathed in the scent of wood smoke and pine and something older, mustier, like a house that had been closed up for a while. Perfect. I unpacked, set up my laptop at the dining table, facing those massive windows, made myself a cup of tea. And then I noticed the journal. It was sitting on the bookshelf next to the fireplace. A leather-bound notebook, the kind you buy at stationery stores, well-worn, pages yellowed with age, the leather cracked and softened from years of handling. Inside the cover, someone had written in careful cursive, "Guest book, please share your experiences." I flipped through it, curious about the people who'd stayed here before me. The entries went back years, dozens of different handwritings, comments about the view, the trails, the feeling of peace that came from being so far from civilization. Beautiful cabin. We loved watching the deer from the deck. Perfect place to unplug and reset. We'll definitely return. The fireplace is amazing, so cozy on a cold night. Saw a bald eagle this morning. This place is magic. Normal guestbook stuff. But as I read deeper, some of the entries caught my attention. Day 3. Woke up and the fire was lit. I didn't light it. Beautiful, but strange. I paused on that one. Read it again. Day 5. Found my coffee mug moved from where I left it. Maybe I'm forgetting things. The altitude does that sometimes. Week 2. Someone is using the cabin when I'm not here. I'm sure of it. But all my things are where I left them, just arranged differently. Like someone touched everything and put it back. My husband thinks I'm being paranoid. I kept reading. More entries caught my eye. 3rd night here, and I swear the light was on in the living room when I went downstairs. I always turn everything off. Am I losing my mind, or did someone fold my blanket? I left it on the couch. I heard footsteps last night. On the roof. In the attic. I don't know. There isn't an attic. Day 4. The fire was lit again this morning. I definitely didn't light it. I'm a heavy sleeper, but not that heavy. Similar patterns. Things moved. Fires started. Objects rearranged. The sense of another presence in a cabin that should have been empty, but always with the same conclusion. Probably just my imagination. Must have forgotten. Sleep deprivation playing tricks on me. Old cabins are creaky. Getting too paranoid, lol. Nobody connected the dots. Nobody noticed the pattern. But I did. I'm a forensic accountant. Finding patterns is what I do. That first night, I set up a camera. Not out of fear, not yet, out of professional curiosity. The accountant in me wanted data, evidence, something I could analyze. I positioned my phone on the bookshelf, angled to capture the main living area, and set it to record from midnight until morning. Then, I went to bed in the loft bedroom above, falling asleep to the sound of the fire crackling below. I woke up at 7 a.m. feeling rested, refreshed, normal. I retrieved my phone, played back the recording. For 6 hours, nothing happened, just the cabin, the fire slowly dying to embers, the occasional creak of the structure settling in the cold. Then, at 6:23 a.m., while I was still asleep in the loft bedroom above, something changed. A floorboard creaked, near the front door. I couldn't see what caused it. The angle was wrong. The camera pointed at the living room rather than the entrance. But I could hear it clearly, the sound of weight being placed on old wood. Then another creak. Closer to the camera, and another. Footsteps, moving through the cabin, coming from the front door toward the living room. I watched, frozen, as a shadow passed across the floor. A human shadow, someone walking just out of frame. They stopped near the fireplace. I heard the distinctive sound of a match being struck, the hiss and crackle of kindling catching flame. Someone had entered the cabin while I slept. Someone had started the fire I'd assumed was just a thoughtful property management touch. And they'd left before I woke up. I called Cascade Properties immediately. A polite customer service representative named Jessica assured me that no one from their company had entered the cabin since my arrival. "We don't do morning fire service," she said. "The fireplace should have been cleaned and ready for you to light yourself. We leave matches and kindling, but we don't actually start fires for guests." But someone was in the cabin. I have a recording. I'm sure there's an explanation. Old cabins make strange sounds. Wood settling, animals on the roof. Would you like us to send someone to check the locks? I said yes. A maintenance worker came that afternoon. Verified that all the locks were functional. Changed the door code just to be safe. He didn't find anything unusual. But I had the recording. I had proof. The second night, I set up multiple cameras. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one pointed directly at the front door. I also stayed up late watching, waiting. Around midnight, I heard it. A car on the private road. Engine idling somewhere down by the main road. Headlights cutting through the trees. Then the engine cut. The lights went dark. Silence, and I waited by the window, but no one came to the door. No footsteps on the porch, no knock, just nothing. After an hour, I went to bed. In the morning, I checked the cameras. The living room camera showed nothing unusual. The kitchen camera showed nothing unusual, but the camera pointed at the front door. At 3:47 a.m., the door opened. Slowly, silently. No one knocked, no one announced themselves. And someone walked in, a woman. I couldn't see her face. She kept it turned away from the camera like she knew exactly where it was positioned, but I could see her clothes. Simple, dark, practical. A heavy coat, boots suitable for hiking. She moved through the cabin with familiarity, like she knew the space, like she'd been here before, like she'd been here 1,000 times. She went to the bookshelf, picked up the guest book, flipped through it slowly, reading each entry with what looked like deep attention, set it back down. She went to the kitchen, opened my refrigerator, looked inside at my groceries, closed it. She went to my laptop, touched it, didn't open it, just touched it, ran her fingers across the keyboard like she was remembering something. Then she walked toward the stairs leading to the loft, toward my bedroom. The camera angle didn't cover the stairs. I lost sight of her as she ascended. For 11 minutes, nothing on camera. Then she came back down. She walked to the front door, paused, turned toward the camera. Still couldn't see her face, the angle, the darkness, the way she kept her head turned. But I could see her smile, small, private, like a secret. And then she left. I didn't sleep the third night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, a kitchen knife in my hand, watching the door. Around 3 a.m., headlights appeared on the private road again. The car stopped at the end of the driveway, engine running, just sitting there. I called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line while a deputy drove out from Bend. 27 minutes. By the time he arrived, the car was gone. He searched the property, found nothing unusual. Fresh tire tracks in the snow, but those could have been from anyone. Could be kids, he said. We get that sometimes. People use private roads to park or they're looking for a turnaround spot. She came inside my cabin. I have video. I showed him the recording. He watched it. His expression didn't change. Ma'am, this shows someone entering the property, but I can't identify them. Could be anyone. Could be the property owner. The property owner? Who do you think owns this cabin? Cascade Properties is just the management company. Someone owns this land. And owners sometimes visit their properties even when there are guests. It's unusual, but not illegal. I called Cascade Properties again the next morning, asked for information about the cabin's owner. I'm sorry, but we can't share owner information with guests. Privacy policy. Someone is entering my rental in the middle of the night. I need to know who has access. I understand your concern. Would you like me to arrange for you to stay at a different property? I should have said yes. I should have packed my bags and driven back to Seattle and never looked back. But I needed to know. The accountant in me. The pattern finder. The one who couldn't let a mystery go unsolved. I needed to understand what was happening. So I stayed. Day 4. I started researching the property, county records, tax filings, deed transfers, building permits, everything public record. The cabin had been built in 1987 by a couple named Margaret and Robert Vance. They'd acquired the land in 1985, drawn permits in 86, and moved into the completed structure in spring of 87. Raised 2 daughters here, lived here for 30 years. According to the property history, it was supposed to be their forever home. Robert died of a heart attack in January 2017. In the kitchen, according to the obituary, surrounded by his family. Margaret sold the property to an investment company 6 months later, Cascade Mountain Holdings, LLC. Couldn't handle the memories, according to a local news article about the sale. The house had too much of Robert in it. The investment company turned it into a vacation rental, hired Cascade Properties, a different company with a similar name, to manage it. Standard story, nothing unusual. Except, I went deeper, pulled every record I could find on the Vance family. Margaret Vance, now living in a retirement community in Redmond. Catherine Vance, elder daughter, born 1985. Emma Vance, younger daughter, born 1985. Wait, born 1985? Both of them? Twins. I kept digging. Catherine Vance had an interesting background. Institutionalized briefly in 2015. Mental health crisis. No details available in public records. Arrested for trespassing in 2016. Charges dropped. Named in a restraining order in 2018. Filed by Cascade Mountain Holdings, LLC. the investment company that bought the cabin, her childhood home. I found her address. She still lived in Bend. Small apartment on the east side of town. I don't know what I expected to accomplish by going there. Confrontation, answers, closure. I just needed to see her face. I parked across the street from her building, waited. Around 4 p.m. she came out. Thin, pale, late 30s, long, dark hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. The kind of person who looks younger from a distance but shows their age up close. She got into an old sedan, dark blue. Same headlights I'd seen on the private road. I followed her. She drove out of town, onto the highway, toward the mountains, toward my cabin. I watched from the road as she parked at the end of the driveway. She sat in her car for almost an hour, just sitting, looking at the cabin through the trees. Then she got out. She had a key. She unlocked the front door and walked inside. I called 911 again. This time I had everything: the address, the license plate, a name. The deputies arrived in 15 minutes. They found Catherine inside the cabin, sitting by the fireplace crying. She hadn't damaged anything, hadn't taken anything. She was just there, in the place where she'd grown up, the place where her father had died, the place she'd never stopped thinking of as home. She admitted to everything. She'd been visiting the cabin for years, ever since it became a rental. She'd copied the locks before the sale went through, changed the codes every time Cascade Properties updated them. She had a contact inside the company, someone who felt sorry for her. She didn't want to hurt anyone. She just wanted to be in her house, to sit by the fire her father used to make, to sleep in the room where she'd grown up, to touch the things that still remembered her. A sad story, not a horror story. Except I still have the recordings. And when I watch them, really watch them, frame by frame, I notice things. Catherine's shadow in the living room footage, moving just out of frame, and another shadow, behind her, smaller, fainter, following her through the cabin. I showed it to the deputies. Trick of the light. I showed it to a video analyst. Compression artifacts. I showed it to Catherine during the one conversation we had before her lawyer shut everything down. She went pale. "That's my sister," she whispered. "Emma. She died in that cabin when we were kids, drowned in the pond out back, 1992. "What?" "I don't go there alone. I never go there alone. She's always with me." I went back to the county records, found the death certificate, Emma Vance, age 7, accidental drowning, June 14th, 1992. Catherine had been there when it happened, 7 years old, same as her twin. She'd watched her sister fall through the ice on the pond behind the cabin, watched her disappear under the dark water, screamed for help until her parents came running. They found Emma's body 3 hours later. Catherine was never the same. I found the pond, 200 yards behind the cabin, through the trees. I found the spot where Emma drowned. A small marker, just a pile of stones with a wooden cross, weathered gray by 30 years of mountain weather. And I found photographs, dozens of them, every guest who'd stayed in the cabin since it became a rental, laminated, weighted with stones, arranged in a circle around Emma's marker, each one labeled with a name and a date, including mine. I don't know what Catherine was doing with those photos. Memorial? Obsession? Some kind of ritual to keep Emma's memory alive? I don't know if Emma is real or a delusion or something else entirely. The rational part of my brain, the accountant, the pattern finder, says there's a logical explanation. Pareidolia, compression artifacts, the power of suggestion making me see what I expected to see after Catherine mentioned her dead sister. But the other part of my brain, the part that woke up every night at 3:47 a.m. while I was in that cabin, the part that felt eyes on me even when I was alone, that part knows what I saw. A shadow that moved independently. A presence that followed Catherine through her childhood home. A ghost. A memory. A sister who never left. I've watched those recordings hundreds of times now, frame by frame, pixel by pixel. The shadow's always there, behind Catherine, beside her, following her through every room, smaller than Catherine, the size a 7-year-old would be. And in one frame, Just one, easy to miss if you're not looking. The shadow seems to turn toward the camera, like it knows it's being watched, like it wants to be seen. Catherine is in a psychiatric facility now. Court-ordered treatment after the trespassing arrest. Her lawyer argued diminished capacity. She genuinely believed her dead sister was with her, guiding her back to the cabin where Emma had died. The judge was sympathetic. Treatment, not prison. I visited her once, had to lie about being a family friend to get past the reception desk. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, the medication dulling the edges of her grief. "Do you still see her?" I asked. "Emma?" Catherine smiled, the same small, private smile I'd seen on the recording. "She's always with me," she said. "She never left." "Even here, in the facility?" "Especially here. She's worried about me. She wants me to get better so we can go home." "The cabin isn't your home anymore, Catherine. Someone else owns it." "The cabin will always be our home," she said. "Emma's there. She's waiting for me. She's waiting for all of us." I left and never went back. But I know what I captured on video. I know what I saw. And I know that I'm never going back to that cabin, never going back to Bend, never booking another rental property without knowing exactly who owned it, who lived there, and who died there. Because sometimes the previous guest isn't just a person who checked out. Sometimes they never left, and sometimes they're still there, watching, waiting, wondering why strangers keep sleeping in their home. Do your research. Look up the property history, the ownership records, the death records. Know who lived there before you. Know who died there before you. Because every home has a history. And some histories don't stay buried. And every night at 3:47 a.m., I still wake up, listening for footsteps that aren't there, waiting for a door that won't open, wondering if Emma followed me home, wondering if she's standing in the corner of my bedroom right now, watching me, waiting for something. I don't know what she wants. I don't know what any of them want, the living or the dead. All I know is that some places hold on to their history, and some histories hold on to you. Everyone said this place was safe, highly rated, 5 stars, superhost status, glowing reviews going back 3 years. Perfect coastal getaway. We'll definitely be back. The host thought of everything. They were all wrong. Or maybe they were all lying. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 34 years old. I'm a podcast producer, which means I spend most of my life in front of a computer screen, editing audio, scheduling interviews, managing content calendars for shows I don't actually care about. It's not glamorous work. Nobody asks for your autograph. Nobody even knows you exist. The hosts get all the credit, and you're just the invisible person making sure their ums get edited out and their stories flow properly. But it pays well. It's flexible. And occasionally, like in November of last year, it lets me work from anywhere with a Wi-Fi connection. My girlfriend Jenna and I had been planning a weekend getaway to the Oregon coast. Cannon Beach, specifically. She'd always wanted to see Haystack Rock, that massive sea stack that shows up in all the postcards and that one scene from the Goonies. We were going to stay at a cute beachfront rental, drink wine, watch the sunset, do all the romantic things people do when they're trying to remember why they're together after 3 years of comfortable monotony. Then she got called into work for an emergency that turned out to be her boss's inability to use a pivot table in Excel. Our romantic weekend became a solo work trip. I decided to go anyway. Figured I could finish editing that season finale I'd been procrastinating on for weeks. Clear some emails. Take a few walks on the beach. Solo trips can be productive, meditative even. That's what I told myself. The rental was called Ocean View Haven, Cannon Beach Jam. 5 stars, 147 reviews, superhost with 8 years on the platform. Photos showed a gorgeous 3-bedroom cottage perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific. Wraparound deck with Adirondack chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean like a painting. The kind of place that makes you want to believe that money can buy happiness. The price reflected the view. $800 for 3 nights. Worth it, I told myself. I needed this. I deserved a few days of peace and beauty, even if I'd be experiencing them alone. The host's name was Eleanor. Her profile picture showed a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a warm smile. standing on what looked like the same deck from the listing photos, wind blowing her hair, looking like a grandmother in a Hallmark movie. Her bio said she was a retired teacher who'd moved to the coast to enjoy her golden years. "I love sharing this special place with guests from all over the world," it said. "The Oregon coast has a magic all its own, and I want everyone to experience it." She responded to my booking request within an hour. "Welcome, Marcus. So happy to have you. The weather's supposed to be beautiful this weekend. Clear skies, which is rare for November. Perfect for watching the sunset from the deck. I've left some local honey and a bottle of Oregon wine as a welcome gift. Let me know if you need anything at all." Warm, friendly, normal. They always seem normal at first. I arrived on Friday afternoon. The drive from Portland had been beautiful, winding through the Coast Range on Highway 26, catching glimpses of the Pacific through breaks in the trees, past small towns with names like Timber and Elsie, through the tunnel at the summit where you can feel the temperature drop, the kind of drive that makes you understand why people fall in love with Oregon. The cottage was even more beautiful than the photos. Weathered gray shingles that looked like they'd been there for decades, red front door with a brass knocker shaped like an anchor, garden beds full of coastal plants that somehow thrived in the salt air, beach grass, sea thrift, things I couldn't name but that looked wild and alive, wind chimes on the porch, tinkling in the ocean breeze, the sound of waves crashing somewhere below the bluff, seabirds calling. I punched in the door code, Eleanor had sent it that morning, and stepped inside. The interior was even better than the exterior. High ceilings with exposed beams, weathered to a silvery gray. That massive window wall facing the ocean, and beyond it, the vast expanse of the Pacific, gray-blue and endless. Furniture that looked expensive but comfortable, the kind of stuff you see in coastal design magazines. The smell of salt air and cedar and something else, something faintly sweet. The welcome gifts were on the kitchen counter, local honey in a mason jar, just like she'd promised. A nice bottle of Willamette Valley Pinot Noir, fresh flowers, dahlias, bright orange and yellow, in a blue ceramic vase. A handwritten note on thick cream-colored paper. "Marcus, so glad you're here. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. The best sunset views are from the deck. The binoculars by the window are for whale watching. It's migration season. Enjoy every moment. Eleanor." I texted her a thank you. "So glad you like it. Enjoy your stay. I'll check in tomorrow to make sure everything's perfect." I unpacked, set up my laptop at the dining table, facing those massive windows and that incredible view. The Wi-Fi was fast, faster than my apartment in Portland. Everything was perfect. I started working on the podcast edit that had been haunting me for weeks. For the first time in months, I actually felt productive. The sound of waves provided a natural white noise. The view was inspiring without being distracting. Around 6, I took a break to watch the sunset. Haystack Rock was a dark silhouette against the orange sky, just like all the postcards. Seabirds wheeling around its peak, waves crashing against the base, sending up spray that caught the golden light. Everything the photos promised and more. Perfect, absolutely perfect. I opened the bottle of wine, poured myself a glass, toasted the sunset and my good fortune. That was my first mistake. I woke up on the couch at 3 a.m., disoriented, groggy. The kind of confusion that comes from falling asleep somewhere you didn't intend to. The wine glass was empty on the coffee table. I didn't remember finishing it. Actually, I barely remembered drinking it at all. I'd had one glass, maybe two, and I wasn't a lightweight. 2 glasses of wine wouldn't knock me out like this. My head was pounding, not a normal headache, something deeper behind my eyes, and my mouth tasted wrong. Not just the stale taste of sleep and alcohol, something metallic, coppery. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, more than just tired, irritated, red-rimmed. And there was something else. A small bruise forming on my forehead, like I'd bumped into something. But I didn't remember bumping into anything. Allergies, I told myself. The salt air. Maybe I was getting sick. I took some ibuprofen from my bag and went to bed. In the morning, I felt better. Mostly. The headache had faded to a dull throb. I chalked the whole thing up to exhaustion and travel. Maybe the wine had hit me harder than expected on an empty stomach. Maybe I was coming down with something. I made coffee, got back to work, sent Eleanor a message saying everything was great. Her response came immediately. Wonderful. Did you sleep well? A normal question. Hosts ask that all the time. But something about the wording bothered me. Did you sleep well? Not, how was your first night, or hope you got some rest. Did you sleep well? Like she knew something about how I'd slept. Like she'd been watching. I found the first review that afternoon. I was procrastinating, reading through the listing's feedback instead of working, when I noticed something odd. The reviews were almost identical, not word for word, but the same phrases kept appearing, over and over. Slept like a baby. Best night's sleep I've had in years. So peaceful, I didn't want to wake up. I've never slept better anywhere. The sleep here is unreal. I was out like a light, over and over, review after review. Different names, different dates, but the same emphasis on sleeping. I started counting. 43 of the 147 reviews mentioned sleep specifically. Almost 30%. That seemed statistically unlikely. What kind of rental property makes people that excited about sleeping? I started reading more carefully. Some of the reviewers had only reviewed this one property. Brand new accounts with no other activity, no profile pictures, no other engagement with the platform. Just this one glowing 5-star review about how well they'd slept. Some had profile pictures that, when I reverse image searched them, came from stock photo websites, the same corporate headshots that companies use for fake testimonials and placeholder content. Some had left reviews on the same day, minutes apart, praising the property in suspiciously similar language, like they were written by the same person copying from a template. The 5-star rating was manufactured. The glowing reviews were fake. But why? The cottage was beautiful, genuinely beautiful. It didn't need fake reviews to attract guests, unless the reviews weren't about attracting guests, unless they were about something else entirely. I should have left then, packed my bags, demanded a refund, driven back to Portland, and never looked back. But I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid. Lots of hosts buy fake reviews. It's scummy, but it's not dangerous. The cottage was beautiful. The view was incredible. I'd already paid $800. Besides, I still had that podcast to finish, and the Wi-Fi was really good. So I stayed. That was my second mistake. Saturday night, I set up a camera. Not because I was scared, just curious. I wanted to know if I'd sleepwalk or something. Explain why I'd woken up on the couch with no memory of getting there. Explain the bruise on my forehead I didn't remember getting. I positioned my phone on the dresser, pointed at the bed, and set it to record. Then I poured myself a glass of wine from a new bottle I'd bought in town. Not the welcome gift, not Eleanor's wine. My own bottle from a store I picked myself. I was asleep by 10. I woke up at 3 a.m. again. Same headache, same confusion, same coppery taste in my mouth. But this time I was in bed. There was something. I grabbed my phone, stopped the recording, hands shaking, started to play it back. The first few hours were boring. Just me sleeping, tossing occasionally, the normal movements of an unconscious body. Then, at 1:47 a.m., the bedroom door opened. Someone walked in. I couldn't see their face. The angle was wrong and the room was too dark, but I could see their silhouette. Small, moving slowly, carefully, like someone who knew exactly where the creaky floorboards were, like someone who'd done this before. They stood at the foot of my bed for a long time. Minutes, just watching. I could see the faint reflection of my sleeping face in their glasses. Then they moved to my side, and they did something to my arm. I couldn't tell what exactly. The camera angle wasn't quite right. The room was too dark. But I could see the movement. A small, precise gesture. Professional. Practiced. They stayed for almost an hour, moving around the bed, checking something, adjusting something. Then they left. The door closed behind them, and I slept through all of it. I checked my arms in the morning light. Left arm first, nothing unusual. Right arm, there it was. A small bruise on the inside of my elbow. Purple and yellow, like it had been there for a day or two. Fresh bruise layered over an older one. A puncture mark in the center, neat, professional. The kind a nurse makes when drawing blood. Someone had taken my blood. While I was drugged and unconscious in this beautiful cottage with the ocean view, someone had come in the night and stuck a needle in my arm and taken something from me. And I hadn't felt a thing. I called the police, showed them the video, showed them my arm, told them about the fake reviews, the drugged wine, the host who asked specifically if I'd slept well. They sent a deputy to the cottage, searched the place, found nothing unusual, no sign of forced entry, no evidence of anyone else having been there. "The video's concerning," he admitted, "but we can't identify the person." "The host drugged me. Do you still have the bottle?" I didn't. I'd thrown it away. Without physical evidence, there's not much we can do. He left, and I was alone in that cottage again. I should have left, but I needed to catch her. So I pretended to leave, packed my car, drove down the road, parked in a turnout hidden behind some coastal pines, and walked back. I hid in the garden shed behind the cottage, cramped, cold, but with a clear view of the back door. Around midnight, headlights appeared. A car pulled up. Old sedan. A figure emerged, small, carrying a medical bag. Eleanor. She used a key to enter through the back door. No hesitation. I waited. Then I followed. Light from the bedroom, soft, medical. I looked through the gap in the door. Eleanor was setting up equipment, IV bags, tubing, collection containers, and in the bed, a woman, a new guest, unconscious, drugged. Eleanor was drawing her blood, bags of it. She was harvesting her. I must have made a sound. Eleanor turned. Our eyes met, and she smiled. "Marcus, I wondered if you'd come back." I ran, called 911 while I drove, told them everything, the address, the woman in the bed, Eleanor, the medical equipment. By the time the police arrived, Eleanor was gone. So was her car. So was the woman from the bed. But they found what she'd left behind, the equipment she couldn't carry quickly, monitors, a portable centrifuge, packaging materials, and the containers in the basement freezer, blood. Hundreds of units of blood, labeled with dates and names and blood types, organized meticulously. Some fresh, some months old, some years old. Names that, when the police ran them, matched missing persons reports from all over the Pacific Northwest. People who'd come to the Oregon coast for a relaxing weekend. People who'd booked five-star rentals with glowing reviews. People who'd fallen asleep trusting they were safe. Some had been reported missing when they never returned home. Some had simply stopped existing. No missing persons report because no one knew they were gone. Eleanor had been running a harvesting operation for almost a decade. Her guests were her product. They found Eleanor's other properties, 3 of them scattered along the Oregon coast, all rental listings, all 5 stars, all with glowing reviews about peaceful sleep. They found more blood at each location, more names, more victims who thought they were getting a weekend getaway. They found her processing facility in a warehouse outside Astoria. Commercial refrigeration, shipping supplies, records of transactions with buyers whose identities are still being investigated. Blood is valuable on the black market, rare blood types especially. There are hospitals in certain countries that can't get enough through legitimate channels. Underground medical facilities, private collectors who believe it has rejuvenating properties. Eleanor had found a supply chain. Her guests were her inventory. She kept them comfortable, kept them sedated, kept them alive most of the time, because dead donors aren't renewable resources. But accidents happen, dosages vary. Sometimes people don't wake up. Those were the names on the missing persons reports. They found Eleanor eventually. living under a different name in Northern California, running a new rental listing, 5 stars, glowing reviews. She's in custody now, awaiting trial on charges that will probably keep her locked up for the rest of her life. The woman from that night, the one Eleanor was harvesting when I walked in, she survived. Barely. Lost so much blood she needed transfusions for weeks, physical therapy to regain her strength. She'd come to Cannon Beach for her birthday, a treat to herself, a solo weekend to celebrate turning 40. She'd read the reviews, 5 stars. Everyone said it was perfect. Everyone said they'd slept so well. She'd never suspected a thing. Not until she woke up in a hospital bed with needle marks in both arms and a detective asking her questions she couldn't answer. The reviews weren't fake. That's the part that haunts me the most. They weren't generated by bots or written by Eleanor herself. They were from real guests, real victims, written while they were still drugged, while Eleanor stood over them, prompting them to type on their phones, building her reputation one stolen review at a time. Best sleep I've ever had. So peaceful, I didn't want to wake up. They weren't lying. They really had slept well, because they'd been sedated, harvested, and they'd never known. Most of them woke up feeling tired, maybe a little sore, maybe with a headache they blamed on the wine. They left 5-star reviews and went home and never realized what had been taken from them. Never realized they'd been tapped like maple trees. Never realized they'd contributed to Eleanor's supply. I talk to some of them now. We found each other online, forums, support groups, people sharing stories that sounded too similar to be coincidence. A support group for people who stayed at Eleanor's properties, people who lost blood they never knew was missing, people who have to get tested regularly now just to make sure she didn't give them something along with the needle marks. Hepatitis, HIV, things that take months to show up. People who can't sleep anymore without checking the locks 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. There are more of us than you'd think. If you ever book a rental property, read the reviews carefully. Look for patterns. Look for accounts that only reviewed one property. Look for language that seems too similar, too rehearsed, too focused on one specific aspect of the stay. If multiple reviews all mention the same unusual thing, sleeping well, feeling peaceful, not wanting to leave, ask yourself why, and trust your instincts. If you wake up somewhere, you don't remember falling asleep. If you have a headache you can't explain. If there's a mark on your arm that wasn't there before. If you feel foggy, confused, like time has slipped away, get out. Get out immediately. Call someone. Tell them where you are. Get to a hospital and ask them to run blood tests. Don't worry about being embarrassed. Don't worry about being wrong. Because some hosts aren't just watching. Some hosts are taking. And you might never know what you lost until it's too late. I still have the recording. I still watch it sometimes. That small figure moving through the darkness. Those practiced hands reaching for my arm. That smile when she realized I'd caught her. I wondered if you'd come back. She knew. She always knew. And somewhere out there, right now, another 5-star listing is going live. Another glowing review about peaceful sleep. Another guest checking in, trusting the ratings, trusting the system. Another harvest.